December 23, 1944, N62 south of Houffalize, Ardennes. The fog finally breaks, and with it, mercy. In an Opel Blitz at the head of a German convoy, Oberleutnant Kurt Weiss tastes frozen exhaust and hears chains slap fenders. Training said, fear the bombers high above. What skims the hedges is one American P-47, silver belly flashing like a knife, lower than doctrine allows, lower than sanity permits. Its engine is a hammer in the ribs, a promise in metal. Orders say, stay high. Reality, down in the thickets, writes different rules. A white tarp on a fuel Bowser snaps in the wind, bright as a prayer flag, bright as a target. What would you pray for? Clouds or courage? December 23, 1944, N62 south of Houffalize, Belgium. The cloud lid rips open like wet paper, and the world sharpens. Snow clings to hedge roots, smoke hangs in the tree line, and a column of German vehicles noses south with the patience of men who've learned that impatience gets you seen. In the lead Opel Blitz, Oberleutnant Kurt Weiss counts interval by fence posts, 50 meters, 60, 70, spacing like a catechism. Chains click over studded tires. A field kitchen rattles somewhere behind him, iron ladles clinking with each rut. They have orders, a march table, a schedule signed in violet ink. Orders mean safety. Orders mean shape against the chaos. They are the bloodstream of a winter offensive already running on nerves. Fuel Bowsers with canvas covers puff vapor into the cold. A signals truck rides mid-column, whip antenna swaying like a metronome. 2 Sd.Kfz. 251 half-tracks herd grenadiers in greatcoats, helmets frosted white at the rims. Farther back, a medical truck sits marked with red crosses the size of doors. Near the rear, a 2-semi-tour flak Veerling, its 4 barrels clamped forward, lashed with rope for the long crawl. The convoy's speed is the speed of its weakest axle. Today, that feels like fate. Weiss's pencil taps the clipboard. Fuel allocation is tight. The Bowser drivers have been warned. No heroics, no idling. The bridge at the stream is posted for 7 tons, but he knows they'll push 9. He knows the road shoulders are soft under the crust, and one slide could wedge a truck nose down, a signpost for Allied eyes. He also knows the good news is the worst news. The fog is gone. The Luftwaffe promised cover. The weather delivered it until morning tore the curtain away. High above, on the radio net, his column cannot hear. Another geometry is forming. 9th Air Force controllers are pushing flights toward the road nets that feed the Bulge. The phrase is armed reconnaissance. Hunt, cut, disappear. The aircraft carrying it is the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, a broad-shouldered brute famed for surviving bad ideas. 8 50 caliber Brownings ride its wings like clenched teeth. Under the belly, 500-pound general-purpose bombs wait in a cold that makes metal sing. The briefed altitude is sane. The mission reality rarely is. In one of those jugs, call sign Blue 2, a first lieutenant feels the heater do nothing for his boots and logs fuel with the same half-prayer cadence Weiss uses on fence posts. He's flown cover. He's flown top cover for medium bombers and watched flak bloom black flowers at 10,000 feet. This is not that. The controller's voice is clean for once, not chewed by static and ground clutter. Multiple columns reported south of St. Vith. Movement toward Houffalize. Light flak expected. Maintain 2,000. Confirm ordnance armed. Execute road denial. He nods to nobody. The jug's prop bites. Down the valley, the sun climbs a thumb's width and turns the frozen hedges to glass. From up here, the road is a thread stitched under trees. Every vehicle a smudge in a gray-green weave. At 2,000, smudges can be anything. Hayricks, carts, wishful thinking. But the shadow angles are wrong for farm work. The line moves with military patience. He knows the pattern from Normandy, trucks spaced like beads, a radio whip cutting arcs, and always, always a flak team lurking inside the string. Weiss feels the convoy inhale as they pass a break in the trees. His driver shifts to second, eases the clutch, keeps the nose steady. The Opel's engine coughs sweet gasoline into the cold. The exhaust trails like a silk ribbon. He watches the men in the bed, scarves up to their eyes, rifle stocks under armpits. One of them hums a Christmas tune he shouldn't, too softly to scold. Weiss lets it pass. He looks up into the blue, only once, then punishes himself for the weakness. Look up, and you miss what's in front. Look up, and you hit the ditch. Behind him, the flak crew rides with gloves stiff as planks, eyes watering. Their sergeant has drilled traverse by hand. The gear is bulky in the frost. He's promised them a warm stove at the next halt. He's promised them they'll get to set the gun on its tripod, not lash it to the trailer like cargo. Promises are cheap on the road. Today, he owes them more than warmth. Blue 2 skims down slope to a lower leg of sky, scanning for the break in the canopy that means road. His wingman hangs back, a step-down stack, eyes on tracers that haven't started yet. The lieutenant inventories the kill chain the way instructors taught him. Find the column, cut the head, cut the tail, segment the middle, feed the fire. Doctrine is math spoken aloud. But math mutates at hedgetop. You don't see the glint of a fuel marker at 2,000. You don't see the white tarp that says gasoline until it flaps like laundry in your face. The tarp is there. It snaps once, windy and bright. A rectangle of treachery against spruce and snow. He feels the knowledge slam through him, the way cold slams through wool. The convoy isn't just moving. It's bleeding fuel down the road. And every liter will be bullets later for Americans he'll never meet. Orders say altitude. The ground says otherwise. Weiss hears it before he sees it. The distant, uneven thunder that isn't artillery, that isn't a truck, that isn't the Luftwaffe. It is quicker. It is nearer. It is a mechanical heart at full sprint. Men in the bed turn as one. Someone points with a mitten. The road's discipline tightens like a fist. Drivers straighten their shoulders and focus dead ahead, as if posture can repel metal. On his clipboard, Weiss has a neat column for timings, for halts, for bridge crossings. The violet signatures at the bottom, someone's captain, someone's depot clerk, swear that if the ink exists, the road remains theirs. He looks at the ink. He looks at the hedges. He looks at the place where the sound will break the trees and show him what the Reich has run out of. A solid ceiling, a defending fighter, a promise that the world obeys paperwork. Blue 2 rolls slightly, and the jug's wing eclipses the sun for a heartbeat. The road leaps into focus, trucks with canvas roofs, a half-track's blunt snout, a medical cross that yanks his eyes, a 4-barrel flak mount still cinched with rope. He bites down on a familiar fear, the light stuff, the stuff that comes fast, and maps the escape routes in his head. If he goes low, he owns identification. If he stays high, he owns safety. The white tarp snaps again, like a flag begging to be burned. The lieutenant thinks of the men down the road, American infantry wading through trees, a tanker listening to his engine for comfort. A kid from Ohio, who still smells of laundry soap. The decision compresses to a moment as narrow as a hedge gap. The jug's nose sinks. A subtle thing, a choice translated into gravity. He tells himself he's only confirming. He tells himself the next second will decide how he writes his report, how he sleeps tonight, how long this convoy keeps breathing. Weiss swallows hard. The convoy's tempo slows without an order. Somewhere behind him, a grenadier mutters a prayer into scarf wool. Somewhere ahead, the bridge waits to argue about weight limits and mercy. Between them, snow, hedges, and a sky that suddenly belongs to someone else. If order keeps you alive, what do you do when chaos moves faster? December 23rd, 1944, N62 south of Houffalize. The road begins to sing wrong. Not loudly, just a thread of discord through snow and chain clatter. A Hork staff car ahead coughs twice, then stalls half on the crown. The driver lifts a gloved hand, mortified. In that instant, spacing collapses. An Opel creeps too close, then another. 50 meters becomes 30, becomes 20. Discipline buckles like ice under a boot. Weiss leans forward, jaw tight. He signals calm, palms down, as if two hands could smooth the whole road. The bridge board back there, 7 tons, flashes in memory. He'd read it fast. He's almost sure it said 7. Almost is a bad word when you owe men safe passage. He marks the moment on his clipboard, a dot of pencil that feels like guilt. A white tarp on the second Bowser slaps hard, catching a sliver of sun and throwing it like a heliograph. 2 grenadiers jump to retie it, boots squeaking in the crust. One loses the knot. The canvas pops again, bright, insistent, loud in a language airplanes read without dictionaries. Somewhere, a crow hacks once, then explodes from the hedgerow. Then another. Black punctuation against white. Behind them, the flak sergeant curses the rope lashings. He works the traverse wheel with wooden fingers, testing bite. The loaders stamp to wake blood. They're not set. Not truly. On the move, the gun is theater, visible, reassuring, almost useless. He knows it. The drivers know it. The sky may know it too. Up there, Blue 2 dips a wing and listens to the radio stutter. The controller's calm narrows, armor west of St. Vith. Traffic reports fanning like spokes. Maintain 2000. Advise when tally. The net blurs, clears, blurs. Winter eats the vowels. He holds his altitude like a promise for 1 more mile. But the valley's shadows misbehave. A darker seam lies under spruce, too straight, too purposeful. Road shadow, not winter shade. He noses lower to test the picture, not the rule. The jug hums deeper. Fresh track marks cut the snow like pencil lines, paired, regular, the work of trucks, not farmers. At 2000, it's suggestion. At treetop, it's confession. He drops another sliver, barely a breath, and the world sharpens like a knife brought to a whetstone. There, the tarp flare, the whip antenna wagging time, the stutter in spacing where the Hork hiccuped. And a small placard on a canvas Bowser, dark stenciling over pale, telling anyone close enough what sloshes beneath. He feels the decision lean toward him, asking to be taken. Weiss lifts his eyes just once and hates himself for it. The sky is clean and pitiless, a cathedral without saints. He tells himself order is a shield. He tells himself the schedule is a spell. Then the crows lift again, all at once, as if the hedges exhaled. Do you trust the plan, or what your eyes can finally see? December 23rd, 1944, N62 south of Houffalize. The sun has climbed just enough to be cruel. At this angle it scalds the snow into mirrors and throws spears of light through the hedges. Weiss squints behind the glass, lifts a sleeve to cut the glare, and tastes gasoline breathed back through the cab. The march table says 8 minutes to the next bend, and a patch of firs good for a halt. 8 minutes is a day when the sky is listening. He rides the convoy's pulse with a quartermaster's dread. Fuel low, tempers lower. The Bowser drivers have been warned about throttle and brake. Every squeeze costs tomorrow. Behind him, the 4-barrel flak is still lashed, barrel caps on, crew hunched like bundled sticks. Their sergeant, eyes red from cold, rehearses the motion that matters. Release rope, swing traverse, find lead. On the move, practice lives where readiness can't. Up in the clean air, Blue 2 draws a mental chalk line along the valley. Approach, attack, egress. He notes a shallow saddle to the east for a get-out, a scatter of barns that might throw up small arms fire, and a frozen meadow that will tempt him to straighten when he should jink. The controller's voice returns, level as a metronome. Maintain 2000. Light flak probable. He acknowledges because he has to. He descends because he must. The jug answers like a living thing, the prop disc churning winter into noise. At 1,000 feet, the road resolves to geometry. At 500, it becomes anatomy, muscle and vein, joint and tendon. He counts vehicles the way gunners count breaths. Head, tail, middle mass. Kill chain 101. Cut the head so the brain can't steer. Cut the tail so the body can't run. Then work the organs. But doctrine forgets the road shoulders. Steep, soft, waiting to swallow anything forced to cheat centerline. A single choke can make a column eat itself. He slips lower to feel the hedges in his peripheral vision, listening for the jug's complaint. None comes. The Thunderbolt was built to take punches. Thick skin, big radial, stubborn heart. He thumbs the gun switch, safe off safe again, nerves tuning for the first squeeze. Then he spots it, the car, in the center of the string that isn't a transport at all. Not canvas, not cargo. A staff car with blackout covers and a pennant mount. Cab tucked tight to a radio truck. Command tucked where it believes the road is strongest. He tastes copper. Hit that, and orders will pool on the floorboards. The convoy will knot itself without anyone roaring. He slides the sight picture through the world. Staff car, radio whip, white tarp twitch, and feels the pull of the obvious. Take the head. But the horse's earlier stall has pulled gap from the front and pushed elastic into the middle. The car with the map might be the truer blade point. Weiss reads the road's discomfort in the small things. A driver clenching the wheel too high, a grenadier craning for sky and cursing the fog for leaving. He wants to order the flak off its leash, to have that spider-legged mount planted in a field with arcs and stakes and confidence. Instead, he has rope and hope and a prayer that the first pass will be high, warning only, a rehearsal. He does not believe that prayer and hates himself for speaking it inside. Blue 2 slides the throttle forward a hair and feels the jug surge. The treetops are now an audience, branch tips flicking past the canopy. Every fraction lower buys clarity and mortgages life. A flicker, movement on the flak trailer. He imagines hands on knots, fingers too cold to obey. The staff car flashes again between hedges, a dark wedge, and beyond it, he finds the escape he wants. A shallow turn over the stream. Terrain masking on the egress. Sky enough to climb if the light stuff starts chewing. 2,000, the net had said. At 2,000, you don't see the rank inside the car, or the way a driver's shoulders hunch before panic. Down here, you can read them like print. He feels the calculus complete itself. One cut at the right depth, and the machine stops on its own. If one cut can stop a machine, would you take the blade lower? December 23, 1944, N62, south of Hauffalize. The blade goes lower. The jug drops into the hedges until branches ghost the canopy. Blue 2 rides the engine's thunder like a drumline, sight ring swallowing the road. The Horsch and radio truck slide together in his glass, head and nerve. He thumbs the guns live. 8 Brownings wake like torn canvas catching wind. The first stitch lands on the opal at the point. Hood leaps. Tires unzip. The truck slews sideways, nose biting the ditch, trailer jackknifing across gravel. Men spill from the bed as if the road tilted. A kettle from the field kitchen ricochets, steaming ghosts into the cold. The column's spine kinks where doctrine swore it was straight. He drags the stream through the radio truck. Antenna snaps. The cab erupts in glass and snow dust. The whip goes slack, a dying metronome. In the same breath, he rakes the Horsch's front quarter. Blackout covers fly, a pennant mount shears, maps blossom across the dash like startled birds. The staff car shrieks sideways, door flung, a figure tumbling into churned snow. Tracers rise late, ragged guessing. The flak crew fights rope and numb hands. The sergeant yanks free, swings traverse by fury, not bearings. Blue 2 is already there. He walks a short burst into the trailer's tongue, then the mount. One barrel jerks skyward, then surrenders. The sergeant folds behind the shield, then crawls for the wheel, as if obedience can rewind time. The jug hammers past at hedge height. The world a fast hallway, splinters wheel, snow vaporizes into glitter. He feels hits he doesn't yet see, pecks along the wing roots, nothing vital. The big radial sings, thick and unworried. He holds the egress he rehearsed, a shallow right over the stream, then climbs just enough to check his 6. The column below convulses in disbelief rather than fire control. Weiss's world detonates without warning flares. He smells raw gasoline and hot iron. The lead truck blocks the road like a fallen tree. The radio, his comfort, has gone mute. He hears the American guns as a zipper through cloth and understands with a bureaucrat's horror how quickly paperwork burns. A white tarp he scolded in his head a minute ago darkens with soot, then swells into black smoke. The same canvas, a new meaning. When the first rule is broken, what other rules still matter? December 23, 1944, N62 south of Hauffalize. The road turns against its owners. The jackknifed opal seals the head like a slammed door. Behind it, panic compresses into metal. Drivers brake too hard, slewing toward ditches soft as bread under the crust. A Bowser's rear wheels drop, spin, spit gray snow and black fuel. The column becomes a string of knots, each tightening the next. Blue 2 glances off the egress, breath steadying, and calls his element. Wingmen answer stacked above, where sanity lives. 1,500, then 2,000. Bait for the flak's upward hunger. He keeps the hedge line, the dirty altitude that promises information and punishment together. Cut them in pieces, he tells himself. Old Normandy advice, winterized. Heads blocked, tail next. Then the middle, organs, not bones. He rolls left, lines the last vehicles, and picks the trailer with spare tires and crates, mobility in boxes. The Brownings stitch again. Rubber erupts, crates leap. A wheel cartwheels glowing and vanishes in the spruce. At the absolute rear, a truck panics into reverse, then digs itself into a grave 2 meters long. The tail folds shut. Now the body can only thrash. The flak Veerling finally speaks with coherence. 4 red pencils raking sky, chasing the higher shapes. Wingman calls, calm but tight. Light, your low's clear. That isn't reassurance. It's permission. Blue 2 acknowledges, dives shallow across the center mass, and sights on the staff car now kinked sideways before the radio truck's torn skeleton. A short burst chews the engine block, silencing movement without harvesting men. He kicks rudder, lifts his nose a finger width, and threads out over the hedges, mindful of the medical cross farther up. Some lines you don't cut. Weiss claws, order from the wreckage, with a voice he barely recognizes. He sends 2 men to chock the sliding Bowser, and 3 to drag wounded clear of the Opal's steaming grill. The flak crew, God bless their fury, has the mount half free, shield forward, barrel searching for a path through branches and smoke. He needs them grounded, tripod planted, arcs plotted. He has road shoulders and rope burns. Fuel leaks find low places and turn white snow to black glass. The smell colonizes everything: cloth, breath, thought. A driver slips, palms glistening, and leaves handprints like signatures across the Bowser's sheet metal. Weiss hangs onto the picture he was trained to trust. Interval, camouflage, speed. The picture dissolves in heat shimmer. Interval means nothing with a tree across the head. Camouflage means nothing when the enemy reads your tarp brighter than your rank. Speed is betrayal on ice. Above, the wingmen make feints that pull tracers like iron filings toward magnets. Blue 2 uses the gaps those feints buy, coming flat and fast along the ditch to erase the column's remaining options. He cuts a mid-truck that carries spare fuel cans along its rails. The cans burst like ripe fruit, and the road hisses. He darts away before the flak can unwind and catches a glimpse of men hauling a stretcher toward the Red Cross truck. He banks off, leaving that slice untouched, saving anger for anything that moves with purpose and no mark. After the second pass, the convoy stops behaving like a line and starts behaving like debris. Engines stall from fear and from physics. Orders evaporate where the radio should be. The staff car's door hangs open, maps trodden to pulp. The white tarp we met as a signal is now a chimney, pumping a column that guides more hunters from miles away. The road, Germany's artery, Germany's faith, has become a trap set by its own geometry. Blue 2 climbs a breath to clear a treetop, checks fuel, and tastes metal under his tongue. He's below the brief, far below, but the book never met this picture. One more cut, and the machine will stop itself, victims rescuing obstacles, obstacles rescuing fire. He rides the hedge again, patient now, methodical in cruelty. If your lifeline is a road, what are you when the road dies? December 23, 1944, N62, south of Houffalize. For a heartbeat, the fight narrows to one boy and one not. A young driver, cheeks raw, scarf crooked, drops from a cab beside the medical truck. The jackknifed Opal blocks the head. The Red Cross can't move. He doesn't look up. He looks at the chain between trailer and pintle, breath fogging like a locomotive. His gloves slip on fuel-slick steel. He rips them off with his teeth. Blue 2 arrives low, intent a razor. The sight ring frames the tangle. Staff car dead, radio mute, flak coughing upward. He tracks for the center mass, where the road still breathes. Then the boy's motion snags the eye. A white armband flashes beneath the coat sleeve. The red crosses blast color through smoke, sudden as summer. The lieutenant feels the squeeze build in his finger, and lets it bleed away. The boy works the pin. It sticks, as pins do in winter. He hammers it with the heel of his hand, then a wrench scavenged from somewhere. The chain jumps, then slacks. He shoves his shoulder into the trailer tongue, boots skating on gasoline glass. Another soldier appears, grabs the far handle, and together they pry the angle straight. The medical truck lurches an inch forward, then another, like an animal deciding to live. Blue 2 slides the pipper off the cross and down the line. He chooses the truck beyond, ammo crates under canvas, no marks except intent. The burst is short, precise. Boxes erupt. A magazine cooks off with sharp, petulant cracks. He jinks past the ambulance by yards that feel like inches. Mercy inside violence. Discipline inside disobedience. He says nothing on the radio. He owes no explanation. He owes the picture his best truth. Weiss sees it and feels something break that isn't bone. The American could have taken the easy kill. He didn't. In the roar's wake, Weiss tastes shame, like iron and salt. He has told men for years that the enemy is crude hunger in a metal shell. The sight of a fighter curbing its teeth for a red cross burns hotter than any fire. If your enemy spares you, what do you owe the truth? December 23rd, 1944. N62, south of Huffeleis. The convoy finds its teeth. The flak Veerling is off the trailer now, squat and angry in the ditch, shield shrugged forward like a jaw. The sergeant barks numbers that mean traverse, elevation, lead. Loaders slap 4 magazines home and curse stinging fingers. When the first burst rips free, it's a red staircase thrown at the sky. 20mm rage, 4 voices, 1 will. Blue 2 feels the tracers before he sees them, an intuition in the ribs. Then the red combs pass behind his tail and climb toward the wingman decoying above. Good, let them look there. He carves back down the hedge, low enough to taste sap in the air. The plan hardens. Shut the choke, then farm the wreck. He toggles the left bomb safe, right bomb live, counts heartbeats to the angled opal and Bowser that locked the head. He streaks through smoke and releases short, low, sure. The 500-pounder dives like a thrown anvil and bites the road just past the jackknifed truck. Earth lifts. Timber snaps. The Bowser's back end heaves, then crashes sideways into the ditch, sealing the lane with steel and mud. The blast's concussion thumps the jug like a reprimand, and fragments rattle his belly as he skims the ripple and climbs, a breath for air. The flak sergeant learns fast. He drags the sight down off the decoy and hunts the hedge runner. The next burst arrives level, mean, anticipatory. Impacts spank the right wing root. Sharp, petty fists. The Thunderbolt shrugs like a prize fighter taking body blows, thick skin and big bones doing their work. Oil pressure holds. Cylinder head temp stays honest. He owes the designers a letter he'll never write. On the ground, a grenadier squad muscles an MG-42 across a fence line and stones a firing platform in the snow. The gun's first rip is a zipper of white dust across the ditch. Its anger is real. Its reach is not. The jug answers with a single rake that chews the fence, flips the gun, and scatters men flat into the frozen furrows. He is cruel in the spaces where cruelty matters and blind in the ones he chose to spare. Weiss feels control return in pieces. Men obeying hands again, not panic. He sends runners, 1 to gather the unhurt, 2 to ferry wounded to the ambulance that now creeps clear of the choke, 1 to pass word to ditch vehicles to the right, not left, avoid the fuel. The flak's rhythm steadies into a heartbeat. He can plan around, burst, adjust, burst. A plan is a kind of prayer. Blue 2 rolls shallow and rakes a mid-column truck stacked with ration tins and spare belts. They spout into the air like coins. He keeps the burst short, disciplined, spreading pain like salt. The wingmen call fuel states. The timer ticks in his head. He can stay a little. Enough to turn damage into paralysis. Enough to make this road a message others will read by smoke. The flak snarls again, closer, angrier. He crosses its line at an odd angle, riding instinct and mass. The jug swallows another sting, then thunders out of the cone, unamused. He's winning the picture, but only because numbers, radials, guns, bombs, sorties, stand behind him like a nation. How long can willpower outfly mathematics? December 23, 1944, N62, south of Huffelize. Smoke writes a column where orders used to be. Weiss tastes it and understands that what kills them isn't only a pilot. It's a factory he's never seen, a line of men with wrenches he will never meet. Tires, plugs, belts, radios, arriving when asked, replaced before they beg. He remembers requisition forms that came back stamped not available, tires carved from old ones, fuel decanted from barrels that smelled wrong. Improvised Germany meets industrial America on a frozen road, and the meeting is unequal. Blue 2 trims the jug and checks the engine as if reading a pledge. Oil steady, manifold good, fuel enough for work and home. The radio is clean. His wingmen speak in a grammar that sounds like confidence. Fuel states, headings, eyes on, tally. Another section checks in, voices younger, eager. Controllers stitch them into the winter like tailors. New hands to pull the same thread. He has one bomb left and a sky that keeps giving him company. Below, Weiss sees how a nation fights through a cockpit. There are spares for these men. There is training that assumes replacement, not collapse. His flak sergeant improvises with rope and rage, because that is what the Reich has taught him to expect, courage covering for parts. He loves that courage. He knows courage is not a plan. Blue 2 banks, glimpses the staff car's papers ground to pulp, and thinks of forms signed far away with signatures that move metal without drama. The jug itself speaks Detroit, thick skin, big radial, built to take bad weather and worse ideas. It is the opposite of delicate genius. It is institutional audacity made of alloy and sweat. A country decided pilots should come home more often than not. The airplane obeys the decision. Weiss inventories lost like a bookkeeper with a burning ledger. Fuel, leaking. Radio, dead. Mobility, choked at head and tail. Morale, alive in sparks, fragile in gusts. He thinks of the depots yelling for reports, of the colonels whose maps expect lines that no longer exist. He thinks of the Luftwaffe that cannot be here, and even if it could, would arrive as ones and twos, brave and late. The wingmen rake the tree line in measured bites, making space for Blue 2 to spend his last weight. He lines the site just beyond the main wreck, choosing where he can turn chaos into architecture. The second 500-pounder leaves clean, dives into the road's shoulder, and lifts a slab that will freeze crooked by nightfall. The lane is now geometry, not apology. He climbs a breath and watches the column understand. A truck tries the field and sinks to the axle. Another angles for the opposite ditch and noses in, surrendering with a sigh. The flak keeps firing, but its anger now defends a monument, not a movement. Smoke becomes a signpost for hunter flights miles away. The sky does not tire. It rotates crews the way a mill rotates shifts. The road does tire. It breaks once and stays broken. Blue 2 levels and feels the weight lighten in his hands. Bombs gone, minutes left. He hears fresh call signs, checking in. Boys he doesn't know, carrying the same grammar and the same math. He thinks of the Ohio kid again, somewhere beyond the next ridge, and understands that the risk he took only mattered because a nation stood behind it, with parts and people and fuel and food and faith in procedures. Weiss steadies a wounded driver and watches the ambulance creep through the gap carved by mercy and violence. Coca-Cola labels surface in memory from a captured crate at a depot. Red script on brown cardboard, ridiculous and undeniable. He had laughed then. He doesn't laugh now. Symbols or systems condensed. Paper stamps here curl in heat. Elsewhere, economy hardens into airplanes. When systems collide, which one gives you a future? December 23rd, 1944, N62, south of Huff-Allies. After the violence, the air sounds too big. The jug's thunder fades into a winter hush, and what remains is small. Coughing engines, a kettle rolling in the road, a man sobbing once and then remembering he is watched. Smoke rises in neat black ladders, marking where decisions were made. Weiss climbs down from the Opal's cab and nearly slips. Gasoline has turned the snow to glass. He steadies himself on the fender and feels heat licking the metal. He tastes the day on his tongue. Cordite, oil, singed canvas, the sour note of fear that becomes shame when it cools. The road is no longer a line. It is an inventory. He starts with the living. 2 men pry a door from the staff car and make it a stretcher. He sends them to the Bowser driver with the burned hands and tells them to keep the hands above the heart. He orders a grenadier to fetch bandages from the ambulance and take nothing the Red Cross needs for someone worse. His voice finds the old authority, but it carries a new timbre, as if something inside has stepped aside to let the truth be heard. The flak sergeant sits with his back to the shield, breathing through his teeth. A loader's sleeve smolders where shrapnel kissed it. Weiss slaps the ember out with his glove. The gun's barrels cool like pipes on a dead organ. He wants to lash it back to the trailer and pretend movement is still possible. The road answers with geometry, jackknife, crater, ditch. The lesson is complete. A runner from the rear skids to a halt, salutes, and reports the tail locked tight. 1 truck in the field to its axles, another with a broken steering arm. The radio is dead. The map is wet pulp. Weiss writes the situation on his clipboard because that's what he was trained to do when order fractures, capture it in squares and lines. The pencil tears the damp paper. He closes the board. He looks up, not to pray for cloud, but to understand the machine that changed his morning. The jug he knows by now, P-47, 8 guns, thick-skinned, radial engine that forgives pilot and weather. The pilot he cannot know, except for this. When the Red Cross filled the site, the guns leaned away. Mercy inside metal. That fact rearranges him more than the bomb did. Blue 2 circles at 2,000, letting the engine cool and the heart settle. He reads the panel with a seasoned mistrust. Fuel state acceptable, pressures nominal, a skin-deep peppering on the starboard wing. He keeps to the briefed altitude again, penitent in a practical way. Below, the road he broke writes its own report. The ambulance threads through the gap he carved, white and red moving with stubborn calm. He thinks of the call he disobeyed, maintain 2,000, and measures it against what he saw at 500. White tarp, whip antenna, a staff car tucked to a radio truck, the boy with the stuck pin, the cross he refused to stain. He knows the book was written to keep men out of predictable flak. He also knows books don't see around hedges. He lets the two truths sit together without apology. Fresh voices check in on the net. The sky rotating shifts with impersonal grace. A controller's cadence folds them into vectors that will bring other roads under the same arithmetic. Blue 2 gives his own position, notes remaining ammo, and offers a final cut if needed. The voice that answers is dry, polite, and efficient, tasking them to push north and look for movement near a bridge no one can protect forever. The war doesn't admire heroics. It admires results. Weiss watches the jug bank away and feels the strangest relief, not at its absence, but at the clarity it leaves behind. He has spent years believing that the Reich's discipline, orders, stamps, the right ink, could make roads invincible if used with care. Today he has learned that a road in daylight is a confession written longhand, legible from the wrong sky. He will carry that sentence to whatever comes next. He kneels by the boy who freed the medical truck. The armband that flashed beneath his coat is dirty now, red blurred to rust. The boy's hands shake, either from cold or from a memory that will return when the room is dark. Weiss squeezes his shoulder once. A father's pressure, a soldier's thanks. He thinks of the pilot who could have ended the boy's morning with one casual squeeze and did not. The thought sits beside the gasoline shine and refuses to move. Blue 2 points the nose toward base, climbing carefully, thinking of a hangar that smells like hot oil and coffee, a crew chief with a pencil behind his ear who will thump the wing and shake his head at the holes. He will say, lightly, that the jug is a stubborn mule, and the lieutenant is harder on mules than necessary. He will mean, simply, that the machine did what the nation built it to do: take risk, and come home carrying fewer names in a folded telegram. The road quiets. The smoke thins. Weiss gathers the wounded and the unhurt into tasks that sound like survival. Clear the lane enough for the ambulance. Post watches for more aircraft. Strip usable tires. Drain unspilled fuel into cans like tavern keepers saving the last bottle. He does it with the precision that once believed in victory and now believes in decency. Low-level American fighter bombers broke more than vehicles when the weather cleared. They broke the dream that roads and schedules could outthink airplanes. Weiss does not say this aloud. He lives it, one ordered gesture at a time, under a sky that has chosen sides and schedules. If you were him, ground or sky, what would you write home about tonight? March 12th, 1945, west bank of the Rhine, south of Remagen. Snow has melted into ruts that smell of mud and iron. Weiss steps from a hedged lane with his hands up, clipboard still tucked under his arm, as if signatures could negotiate with spring. American MPs wave him toward a knot of prisoners. A deuce and a half growls past, cases clinking, Coca-Cola bottles flashing red script through dust. He doesn't flinch. He studies the label like a flag and hears faintly the winter engine that taught him its language. Paperwork curls in his pocket. Violet stamps turn to soft blue bruises. A medic moves through the column, calm, brisk, red cross vivid against khaki. Weiss thinks of the white tarp on the Bowser, of roads that became traps, of a fighter that lowered its teeth and then looked away. The war that trusted schedules is ending on foot. The war that trusted factories drives by with laughter in the bed. He exhales and lets the clipboard sag. Clarity feels like surrender. And mercy, too.